We all know about the legendary tomb of China's first emperor Tumachin Shi Huang, where over 8,000 terracotta soldiers, 130 chariots, and 520 horses were buried to guard him in the afterlife. And that's just what we've found so far. Most of it's still hidden, untouched, like the man took half a kingdom with him when he died. Death is part of life. But have you ever thought how your final resting place might look once you've clocked out for good? Well, it's a bit morbid, but why not make it interesting? Here are some unique examples to show that even after the credits roll, you can still leave a mark. These are the 15 strangest, most weird graves in the world. Number 15. Love struck in the afterlife. Well, you'll find no shortage of hauntingly beautiful graves inside France's Père Lachaise cemetery, but Fernand Arbelot's tombstone stands out in a way that feels quietly devastating. We mean, just look at it. This guy was an actor and pianist, and when he died in 1942, he left behind a gravestone unlike any other. His bronze statue lies flat, hands gently cradling a sculpted face. It's believed to be his wife's, the lady he asked to look upon forever, even after death. Not much is known about Arbelot himself. His life didn't echo through history like some of the other names buried nearby, but the simplicity of his final request says more than any performance ever could. Love like that doesn't need a spotlight, it just needs a place to rest. There's something heartbreakingly still about the sculpture. It doesn't demand attention, it just exists. Caught in a moment that never ends. A man, a memory, and the face he couldn't let go of, even in death. Number 14. The Morte-Safe Grave. In 18th and 19th century Scotland, the dead weren't allowed to rest for long. Medical schools needed cadavers, and body snatching became a thriving business. That's where the morte-safes came in, iron cages locked over fresh graves to stop the corpse from being stolen. They looked like something out of a horror film, but the threat was real. Executed criminals were once the only legal source for dissection, and supply couldn't meet demand. So, grave robbers stepped in, digging up the newly buried and selling them off before anyone noticed. It wasn't just a crime, it was a deeply personal violation, especially in a time when religious beliefs centered on the body staying whole for resurrection. Some morte-safes were temporary, removed after a few weeks. Others were permanent fixtures. The sight of rusted iron over moss-covered headstones might look medieval now, but back then it was protection. Not from the undead, but from the living. Number 13. White Shark Tombstone. There's personal, and then there's this. In Pittsburgh's Allegheny Cemetery stands a gravestone shaped like a shark's head, wide mouth open, teeth bared, and zero apologies. It belongs to Korean War veteran Lester C. Madden, who apparently loved Jaws so much he decided to spend eternity beneath its iconic grin. Whether it was the film itself or just a fascination with the ocean's apex predator, Madden didn't settle for the usual polished slab. While most graves around him are somber and forgettable, he cuts through the stillness with a fin. It's not subtle, and that seems to be the point. Death, for some, isn't just about rest, it's about identity. And Madden's identity was part war hero, part movie buff, part man who didn't care what the neighbors thought. A shark head in the middle of marble crosses and upright stones isn't something you walk past without stopping. It demands attention, and in its strange way, it delivers exactly what the man asked for, never to be ignored. I think I'll do something like this. Number 12. Amy Winehouse's sister's grave. Amy Winehouse is buried in Edgwarebury Cemetery in North London, next to her beloved grandmother Cynthia. Her headstone is simple, black, with pink writing, a carved songbird, and the names of those who loved her most. After her death in 2011, the world mourned and dissected her life in equal measure. There were headlines, documentaries, and endless speculation. But at her grave, none of that noise matters. It's quiet, tucked away. She's not surrounded by spectacle or press. Just earth, flowers, and the weight of a voice silenced too soon. Fans leave notes, lipstick prints, and handwritten lyrics. The headstone has become a place where grief and celebration blur. For all the noise the world made about her, here she rests with calm. Her legacy, like her music, remains raw, honest, and unresolved. You can feel it in the air around her name, like a final chorus still echoing but never quite fading. Number 11. The Hanging Coffins of Sagada. Sagada in the Philippines has a burial tradition that's both fascinating and a little unsettling. The elderly, aware their time is nearing, prepare their own coffins, carved by hand from hollowed logs. It's physically demanding, especially for someone at the end of life, but that's the custom. Once they pass, the body is carefully folded into the coffin. Sometimes bones must be broken to make it fit, but they aren't buried. Instead, the coffins are hoisted up and secured to the cliffs or caves, dangling high above the ground near their ancestors. It's a practice over 2,000 years old, based on the belief that the higher the coffin, the closer the soul is to the afterlife. The visuals are striking: wooden boxes scattered along vertical stone, weathered by time, some eventually rot and fall. So no, it's not advised to stroll directly beneath them, out of respect, yes, but also because gravity still works, and those cliffs don't always hold their silence. Number 10. Père Lachaise Cemetery. Well, this is less a cemetery and more a museum of the dead. Founded in 1804, it was originally too far from the city center to be popular. So, in a clever move, the remains of philosopher Pierre Abelard and Héloïse were relocated there to draw attention. It worked. Over the next 2 centuries, Père Lachaise became the place to be buried if you wanted to be remembered. Now it's packed. Narrow lanes, crumbling mausoleums, and thousands of names etched in stone. Jim Morrison, Oscar Wilde, Edith Piaf, just a few of the legends buried here. But it's not just the famous who attract visitors. The graves of unknown lovers, poets, and war dead receive just as much reverence. People wander the paths like it's sacred ground, whispering stories and lighting candles. Some call it romantic. Others find it eerie. Either way, the dead here don't rest quietly. They invite visitors, conversations, and the occasional bottle of wine open nearby. Number 9. Allison Sitt's Dollhouse Grave. Vivian May Allison died in 1899 at just 5 years old. She never got to open the gift her father had spent months building, a dollhouse meant for Christmas. After her death, the unfinished house was placed on her grave in Connorsville, Indiana. Painted green and white, it became her final resting place, both a tribute and a tombstone. Her parents visited the grave every week for 70 years, tending to the house as if she were still inside. They cleaned the windows, replaced the tiny curtains, and even added toys. When they passed, a local group took over the care of the site, preserving it from weather and vandals. The dollhouse still stands. Time has aged it, but the memory inside feels untouched. It's not ornate or famous. It's quiet, small, and deeply personal. A child's lost future wrapped in wood and paint. Some graves mark an ending. This one holds a moment that never had the chance to begin. All right, guys, now let's talk about Number 8. The Tomb of William Jeff. This guy feared worms, not in life, but in what came after. He wasn't scared of dying, exactly. What terrified him was the thought of being buried in the dirt and slowly consumed. He was young, just 28, when he returned home to North Carolina in 1845 and fell ill. As he grew weaker, his fear grew louder. He begged to be buried not underground, but in a rock. His family listened. After his death, they hired a stonemason to carve out a giant boulder. It took a year. While they waited, rumors say his body was preserved in a barrel of brandy and sunk in the river. When the tomb was ready, he was transferred inside, and a stone slab was placed over him. That part's confirmed. The brandy bit, less so, but it still gets told. His grave doesn't look like the others. It's not meant to blend in. Jeff's terror of being eaten in the earth left behind something solid, strange, and unforgettable. Number 7. The Tomb of Jimi Hendrix. Jimmy was buried just outside Seattle, where he was born, in a modest grave beside his mother. But over time, the quiet spot turned into a place of pilgrimage. Too many fans, too many scribbled lyrics, too many lipstick kisses smeared across the old headstone. In 2002, his remains were moved to a brand new memorial in Renton. Now a 25-foot marble structure stands over him, complete with columns, carved lyrics, and a full portrait etched in stone. It's massive, but it still somehow feels intimate. Maybe because no matter how grand the tribute, the loss still weighs heavy. Like others in the 27 Club, Hendrix became more myth than man. His grave draws fans daily, some respectful, others less so. Maintenance workers often scrub away graffiti, remove cigarettes, and polish lipstick off the stone. But through all that, his music lives on. And the monument, for better or worse, keeps his presence fixed, immovable, loud, and entirely his own. Number 6. The tomb of Florence Irene Ford. Florence Irene Ford was only 10 when she died, but her fear of thunderstorms was something her mother could never forget. During her short life, Florence would cling to her mother whenever lightning lit up the sky. So when she passed, her mother had something unusual built, a grave with stairs. A small stairwell was placed beside the casket, leading down to a window where she could see the coffin. During storms, her mother would sit in the stairwell and speak to her just as she had when Florence was alive. She would read stories and sing quietly, trying to calm what she imagined was still a frightened child. The space remained untouched for decades, until the 1950s when a concrete wall was added to prevent vandalism. But the steps remain. You can still visit them. It's not flashy or dramatic, just a heartbreak preserved in stone, a mother's love, buried 6 feet deep, and a little girl who still gets visits when it rains. Number 5. The Inez Clarke Monument. In Chicago's Graceland Cemetery, one grave doesn't just mark the dead, it haunts the living. Inez Clarke died in 1880, only 6 years old. Her grieving parents refused to let her memory fade into stone, commissioning a life-size statue of their daughter, sitting calmly under a glass box. The likeness is eerie in its stillness. Sculpted with careful detail, the figure wears a solemn face and 19th century dress, watching the world from her transparent tomb. At first glance, it's touching. But over time, whispers grew. A night watchman reportedly fled after seeing the statue vanish overnight, leaving only an empty case in the rain. The next morning, she was back. Others claimed to have seen a small child wandering the cemetery, always dressed in clothes from another era. No one really knows who sculpted her, or if the girl even lies beneath. But on stormy nights, when the winds curl around gravestones and trees groan under their own weight, people still swear they see movement inside that glass. It's not wind, it's something else. Number 4. Elvis Presley Sits Grave. Graceland isn't just a house, it's a shrine. And at its heart, by a stone fountain in the meditation garden, rests Elvis Presley, surrounded by family and fans who never stopped showing up. His grave, along with those of his mother, father, grandmother, and later his daughter Lisa Marie, is surprisingly modest. Marble slabs, gold lettering, clean. But it wasn't always here. After his death in 1977, Elvis was first buried in Forest Hill Cemetery. Then someone tried to steal the body, literally. His 900-pound copper-lined coffin was targeted for ransom. Security couldn't guarantee safety, so the Presley family brought him back to Graceland. Now he lies on the property he loved, at the home he turned into a kingdom. Tourists still flock there every day, leaving flowers, scarves, and scribbled notes. It's not just a burial site, it's the final curtain call, set in stone. And even in silence, the king still draws a crowd. Do you miss this legend? Number 3. The tomb of Mary Ellis. Mary Ellis was laid to rest in 1828 on a wooded patch of land beside the river in New Brunswick, New Jersey. For decades, her grave remained untouched, quiet beneath the trees. Then came the 1960s, and asphalt, In a move that feels more absurd than respectful, developers built a shopping center right over her grave. Rather than exhume or relocate the tomb, they simply paved around it. Her headstone was left stranded in the middle of a parking lot, surrounded by discount stores and moviegoers. Over the years, the ground around her was lowered, leaving the tomb raised awkwardly above the blacktop. Today, it stands alone, 8 feet higher than the pavement, boxed in by concrete and traffic. Her story, once forgotten, became impossible to ignore. From wooded peace to parking lot curiosity, Mary Ellis now watches over SUVs and popcorn spills, her grave caught between history and poor city planning. It's not poetic, it's just strange. Number 2. Tomb of the Eagles. On the windswept cliffs of Orkney, there's a tomb that's been watching the sea for thousands of years. Locals call it the Tomb of the Eagles, but archaeologists know it as the Isbister Chambered Cairn. Discovered in 1958 by a farmer, the site lay hidden under earth and time until a proper excavation in 1976 revealed something strange: human bones scattered throughout, but no full skeletons. Mixed among the remains were the talons and bones of many white-tailed sea eagles. Somewhere between 8 and 20 birds had been deliberately placed in the tomb. Whether they were part of the burial rituals or added centuries later remains a mystery. Some believe the eagles were symbolic, a spiritual guide or totem of the dead. Others think they represent something lost to time entirely. Either way, it's not often you find a burial chamber where humans and predators rest side by side, sharing a dark silence that stretches back over 5,000 years. Number 1. Russia sits City of the Dead. Even Putin is afraid to visit this place. Dargavs sits alone in the mountains of North Ossetia, Russia, a place where no one lives, but thousands remain. Known as the City of the Dead, it holds nearly 100 stone crypts, each built centuries ago, each holding remains dressed and surrounded by the belongings they once held dear. More than 10,000 people rest here. But the name doesn't come from the body count. Locals say anyone who enters doesn't come out. Superstition? Maybe. But people still hesitate. The crypts are built with single windows, just big enough to peer through and see the skeletons inside. Some still lie fully dressed, untouched by time, resting in quiet rows. It's not a tourist spot. It's a warning wrapped in silence. The kind of place that doesn't feel abandoned, just paused. You can visit if you're brave, but the longer you stand there, the more it feels like the dead aren't resting. They're waiting. We hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.